Hey everyone, Cole here with trainwithcole.com. I wanted to make another video in relation to exercise and training programming. About a week ago, I produced a video talking about 4 or 5 points to consider when you go to change your training programming. And so I wanted to make a video related to just programming in of itself. And I wanted to address, I think, two critical questions that any good coach, or if you're even yourself programming, exercise programming for yourself, um, needs to address when programming. I think these two questions are what ultimately will build good programs, um, and they're very related to one another. Now, the first question is certainly obvious. It's nothing new, not groundbreaking, really in the slightest bit. Anytime we sit down to make a program, whether for yourself or somebody else, whether you realize it or not, you're answering this question by default. But I think a lot of times we get too caught up in this first question. But the first question is this: is what should I add, or could I add to whatever training program I'm doing to reach my goal or make it more efficient to reaching my goal? Okay, nothing new there. We constantly ask that at the beginning of any training program. We program for a goal in mind, so we answer that question. But I think a lot of times we either stop there or we put too much emphasis on what can be added. How can I make this better by adding in different things to do, different stimuluses, different styles of training? In no way am I saying that that is wrong. Again, because as we know, any training program is very client and goal dependent. So some goals and training programs are going to require the addition of a lot of different things. They're going to have, they'll be very complex, whereas others, maybe for a simpler goal or a beginner or intermediate athlete, are not going to be that complex. And by and large, answering that question will make good programs, right? I mean, if you know what you're talking about, if you're educated in exercise programming, that's going to make a fairly good program. That's it just is. However, the flip side to that question is, I think, the one that a lot of times we don't consciously ask ourselves. We might think about it subconsciously, but I don't think we ever, at least as coaches and trainers, I don't see a lot of people consciously ask themselves this. And that question is this: is what can be taken away from the program that I have that will not harm the goal of the program? Basically, is there any extra fluff that maybe I had put in there that really, when it comes down to it, isn't necessary for whatever the goal is? Now, again, remember what I just said. Programming is very client and goal dependent. I'm not saying or advocating that we should do less work. I think a lot of times more people can do more work and have more activity and more physical output for whatever the goal is. I'm not trying to say that we should try to get by with the bare minimum. What I'm trying to say is we want to always consider that we're not adding anything for the sake of adding it. I think the best programs are the ones when nothing else can be taken away from it. Now, these two questions have to constantly be asked because they're, again, it's very client and goal oriented, right? How the client responds to different training or nutritional stimulus is going to change. And so we need to assess these two questions constantly. Do we need to add anything to make sure we're still in optimal progress to our goal? Do we need to take anything away that's now keeping us from being optimal to our goal that maybe at one time was optimal but isn't anymore? I think good coaches ask themselves this question, and I believe ultimately it's the second question that really truly makes great programs. I think when the second question is considered, that's when a good program turns into a great one. Again, totally goal and client dependent. But we need to constantly be asking ourselves. So what my point is to you is, ask yourself that. Look at your training that you're doing, if you're a coach or a client, and say, can anything be taken away from this that would allow the client or myself to concentrate and put more effort into what is really making the difference, the meat and potatoes, so to say. Just a point that something that I've kind of observed over the last year or so of training, and something I've tried to implement with my clients, and just to keep the goal, the main thing, not getting caught up in extra fluff, whether from a nutrition or exercise standpoint. So anyway, something to consider. Comment below. Let me know, when you program, what questions do you ask yourselves? What do you try to answer? What are your thought processes? would really be curious to know what you guys think. I want to know if you disagree with me. Let's have some good discussion about that. You can shoot me an email at trainwithcole117 at gmail.com, or find me on Facebook, whatever works for you. Have a great day.